Dear audience, ladies and gentlemen, we're live again and we're very happy to welcome you back. This afternoon we will be discussing various European Commission and EU funding instruments, and what we already discussed this morning is of course this funding component, which is important to push forward certain technologies related to ECS and key digital technologies as such. And well, we've heard the term Horizon Europe already, Horizon 2020, we've heard ECSEL as a term, but there's much more than that, and it is my great pleasure to have three gentlemen in this session explaining to you those different funding instruments. Also, I'd like to point out that we do need to acknowledge that there is some uncertainty regarding those funding programs for the fact there's no final approval yet on the budget, which also has consequences for the different public-private partnerships and the calls. But we all do know that the programs are very much aimed and geared towards really making it fit for the future, and that is what these gentlemen are definitely working on. So bear with us, and that's good to know in advance. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here with 900 participants, which is an impressive number. So I hope you stay tuned, and it is my great pleasure to introduce to you, first of all, Paco Ibanez, who is the Deputy Head of Unit at DG Connect and also responsible for the competitive electronics industry. And prior to joining the Commission, Paco was active in the semiconductors research, the Bell Labs in the United States, and had a number of industrial assignments, including process and product engineering in microelectronics design and fabrication. And at the European Commission, he had responsibilities in different R&D areas, including networks and communications and future and emerging technologies. And now he's also involved in the ICT part of Horizon 2020, with a main focus and interest in micro and nano electronics and integrated microsystems. I think that is enough for an introduction at this very moment. I would like to give the floor to Paco. Looking forward to having your contribution.
And good afternoon, everybody. I hope you can hear me fine, and you can see. You can see the slides. Thank you. Thanks again for the opportunity to share with you where we are in the preparation and launching of the new programs. This is an interesting and exciting experience that we are sharing with some of you. So let's go through the presentation. I'll try to be to the time that has been and focus on what are the important points in this transition that we are having from Horizon 2020 into Horizon Europe. It's a change of program. Sorry, you see some kind of pop-ups in my screen. I think this is unavoidable. This year, 2020, is a very interesting and exciting year, because a transition of framework program, or research and innovation framework program in the EU, is always an opportunity to kind of look back, see what's been working, what has not been working, what sort of new elements and novelties we need to introduce to improve the way the program works. So we have been going through this process already. I would like to share that with you. But first, a few indicators where Europe stands in the global context. If we look at the situation in Europe in terms of research, it's clear that we have world-class research, and we have a number of industrial sectors which are strong. And we want, of course, to move into a situation that we can, based on those strengths we have in Europe, take leadership in innovation and also in entrepreneurship, in competitiveness. So in order to do that, we have here a few indicators of where Europe stands today in terms of population, in terms of research and development, and also in terms of what are the number of high-quality research publications and publications. So those numbers, I think, talk by themselves. But we see here one of what can be considered of the problems that we need to tackle, which is the investment we have into research and development. And you can see that Europe, you can see in the lower part of the screen, the left side, that Europe still is below other countries which are also having ambitions in being leaders in the digital world. We are at 1.3% investment in terms of R&D. We need to improve the situation. We are kind of half of what South Korea is doing, and with something like 2.5 below what Japan is doing. So again, what we are trying with the new program is not only to invest public resources, but also to stimulate the investment of private resources. Another indicator, I'm just looking into the data in terms of gross domestic product, and as a kind of measure of the weight of the economy of the different countries or regions around the world. And you can see the European Union, at the 27 countries of the European Union, today they are at 16% of the global GDP. So a comparable situation with the United States and China. Once you convert this GDP into power of purchase, okay? So and the message here is that you take European countries in an isolated way. You can take Germany, you can take France, Italy, Spain, to mention the largest economy in the Union. We are talking about Germany, 3.5%. We're talking about France, 2.25%. Italy is 1.8%. Spain is 1.1%. So clearly we are in a situation with uniting forces and trying to work together. It gives us a position which is, again, comparable to the best in the world. So as I mentioned before, we went through the exercise of analyzing, and what we have seen is that there are two primary areas that we feel that change has to be introduced. The first one is how to exploit innovation in areas which are being considered the breakthrough innovation. And the second one is how can we improve impact compared to the situation we have today. And for that, we come with two novelties. Sorry, my cat is just on the way. So the first one is try to support innovations by the creation of a new part in the framework program, which is the European Innovation Council. That to a point is inspiring in the successful program which is addressing European research, the European Research Council, ERC. The second one is a total new element into the new work program, or framework program, which is the research and innovation missions. Again, this is the idea of how you can have very clearly well-identified goals, quantitative goals, and put resources toward the achievement of those goals. Okay, I would say that there are other areas that have been identifying which for improvement, but I would say that this more kind of fine-tuning type of actions that we need rather than anything radical. Okay, and I will focus on one of those, which is partnerships. Okay, regarding missions, we went through the process to identify, once the model has been put forward and kind of polished, we went through the process of identifying which areas missions can have a higher impact. And those are the 5 areas. I will not enter into detail, but what I would say is that those areas will be addressed in a kind of transversal way. So you will not find, when you say the structure of the framework program, a particular area where, or a particular box where missions are fully, I would say, packed, but rather they are running across existing program, existing parts of the framework program, and this is the way mission will work. You had there the 5 areas. I don't think I need to repeat. Clearly, all of them are important. And again, this is a new experience for us, and hopefully we can join. We can join effort and achieve the ambitious goals of every of these missions. Okay. So another area I wanted to share with you are partnerships. In the current framework program, there are over 100 partnerships. We felt that was a kind of proliferation that went beyond what was considered reasonable. So we went through the rationalization, the assessment of partnerships, and came down to 49 partnerships that are implemented in the areas that you can see there in the left side of the slide, and they have been implemented in different ways and different formats. The one most of you will be familiar with is the joint undertaking type of program, which is using one article of the European Treaty, which is Article 187, that allows member states, industry, and the Commission or the Union to work together in the implementation of parts of the framework program. So what you have there is the list of the partnerships that will be implemented according to this chapter, the so-called joint undertakings. I don't think I need to repeat. Some of those are continuation of existing JUs, others are new, like the one you have there on the smart network and services. And also what we are now trying to put in place are a mechanism that allow those partnerships to work together. Clearly, this is a message we have received. We can exploit further the interaction, the synergies across partnerships, and this is something we are working in putting in place the right mechanism. I have marked in red what I can kind of consider digital partnerships. And then there are the one of smart networks, the one of high-performance computing, the one of photonics, and the one of artificial intelligence. Last one I want to mention is the one of digital technology, the one you probably, I'm surely, are more interested on. And clearly, when talking about synergies, when we're talking about KDT or photonics, they are clearly a partnership that will be delivering technologies that will be necessary in all the digital partnerships, certainly in the smart networks, in supercomputing, in artificial intelligence, and certainly in other partnerships which are addressing more type of applications, type of technologies. Okay, so this is the strategy. Has probably seen this slide already a number of times, but yes, it condenses what is the structure of Horizon Europe, and you can see that to a point it maintains this triple pillar that we have already in Horizon 2020 of science, industrial research, and innovation. Now the novelty here for most of us, I think to a large extent to the KDT community or to the electronic component system community, is that we're going to be part of Pillar 2 under the so-called clusters. Those clusters, as you can see, there are clusters addressing the different, I would say, challenges that we are facing from the economic and from the social point of view. And the one where you have to probably put more attention on is the one, the cluster number 4, which is the digital industry and space cluster. Okay, so I think the rest of the programs or parts of the framework plan, I think you are mostly familiar with them. I don't think we need to get in detail. Yes, let me point out to the European Innovation Council in Pillar 3, which is again a novelty. In Pillar 2, cutting across will be the missions. This is where missions will be. For simplicity, are not there, but this is the way will be implemented. Now, maybe it's the moment to talk about funding, budget, money. So, as you know, has been strong on, I would say, complex discussion, also because of the COVID crisis, in agreeing and deciding the European budget for the next 7 years. So this is the multi-annual financial framework being under discussion, but they reached a strong milestone last 10th of November, a couple of weeks ago, in which Parliament, the Council and the Commission agreed on dedicating or devoting to the next 7 years a total package of 1.8 trillion. And that includes a recovery fund, which is in the region of 750 billion. And it also covers the annual financing of the Union that is at the level of 1.1, almost 1.1 trillion. Okay, but now what I have put there is the latest decision, again from the Parliament and Council, that I would say later agreement, because the formal decision is still to be taken in the Council Summit to be taking place on the 9th and 10th of December. And you can see that in the Horizon Europe, the budget that is indicated is 7.9 billion. Okay, so we are getting close to 80 billion, and to that we need to add 5 billion that has been agreed as a part of the recovery package to be devoted to Horizon Europe under certain conditions. For example, this extra 5 billion needs to be spent in the first 3 years of the program, 2021, 2022, 2023. Okay, so this is to give you an idea of what is the budget that will allow to implement and hopefully be successful in the ambitions of Horizon Europe. Okay, from the pure legal point of view, and this is the way it's written in the current agreement, those are the objectives of Horizon Europe. It has a scientific and technical objective, it has an innovation and competitiveness, a job creation objective, but also it has an objective to deliver on the priorities of the citizens, of the society, on the societal model and the values of the Union. The values has been a controversial debate in the past, the way value has probably been presented. Clearly, just to clarify, here we are talking about fundamental values. So we are talking about human rights, we are talking about democracy, we are talking about protecting and respecting diversity. Okay. So yes, I I went into the kind of archive and see what happened in the past. And the framework plan has been there since 1984. This is more than 35 years already in place. So I put this so you can yourself identify what was your first experience with the framework program and positioning this graph. So depending on the bar that you position, that will probably telling quite a lot about your experience and maybe also about your age. Okay. Then you can see that the bar, you see the funding, financing has been growing up with every framework program. So now we are entering into the 9th framework program. You prefer going with numbers, and this is what we're working up to. Okay. Now I want to cover this because the title of this session is financing instrument. Of course, we are working in preparing a work program, preparing call for proposals, and I want to share with you, although this is still at the draft level, what is the process we are putting in place and what is the timeline. So in terms of process, we are going from the political priorities of the union into the development a strategic plan that will cover the first 4 years of the framework, and then into the work program that will cover the 2 first years. We already been sharing with member states in our program committee a draft of this work program, and the idea, time-wise, is to have the program approved in the first half of the year, hopefully quarter number 1 of 2021, and be able before summer break to have the first call for proposals launched, and therefore being launching the first batch of projects of 2021 work program in the course of next year. Okay, so what you have there is the so-called destination. I will not spend much time in conceptually, but those are areas we are focusing on. And in cluster 4, the one dealing with digital industry and space, those are the 6 kind of section destination we have identified. The one we should put or focus most of our attention is on digital emerging, not only, but mostly on digital emerging. And then I don't have time to go through in detail, but you will have access to the slides. And I wanted you to have at least a kind of snapshot of what is the situation in terms of the content of each of these destinations and what are the topics that are included. Okay, so you can identify well at the time of preparing proposals what are the areas you need to focus on. Okay, but let me just to finish, just a couple of minutes to finish. There is more than the Horizon Europe program. We have launched a new totally new program, which is a Digital Europe program. This Connecting Europe has been there for a while and also will be supported. But let me focus for a short time onto Digital Europe. This is a new program that we are launching, which is mainly to stimulate deployment, digital deployment, and to stimulate the building of specific capacities. This is areas which comes after research and innovation, and the one way or another are linking to the industrial investment that we've been hearing this morning in the different speeches. Okay, let me tell you a bit the structure of the program, what the main areas. In terms of technologies which are covered, operated technologies, there are 3, which are high-performance computing, artificial intelligence, and cybersecurity. Those are clear areas that we need not only research, but we need to put in place the resources to have them fully deployed, because they are important contributors to the digitization of the European economy. There is another area which is transversal, which is the one of digital skills, and we are also dedicating resources. Some mentioning was this morning on the presentations. And a final one is to support, again, the adoption of digital technologies in the private, but also in the public sector, an area we don't normally address, we don't put much attention to it, but again, the public sector also is an area in which digital technologies can strongly contribute. Behind this, there is the concept of making technologies, digital technologies, widely available in Europe and promote access to those technologies. For that, we are putting in place a network together with member states and regions, a network of digital innovation hubs. The idea is to establish a network of center of competence on digital technologies that will have 2 dimensions: a geographical regional dimension, make sure that they are all over European regions, and a technology dimension. They will be specialized in certain technologies. And hopefully the combination of these 2 dimensions will allow any company in Europe, regardless of the size, regardless of the sector they are active on, and regardless of the geographical situation, to have access to digital technologies in the future. Okay. Of particular interest on this program is the launching of the so-called platform that will be supporting testing and experimentation facilities. The idea is that we put in place an infrastructure in which technologies can be tested, can be validated, and can be experimented by industry and academia. And the one we are putting most attention from the electronics component and system point of view is the one on AI chips. So this is the idea of using new architecture, in particular neuromorphic architecture, which are very well suited for artificial intelligence, embedded artificial intelligence. And the sector we are trying to address with that are the one smart mobility, agri-food, health, and industry. Just to finalize, trying to be practical when looking into opportunities for funding, we have a portal that collects all relevant information. So it's called Funding and Tender Opportunities for the Framework Program. You had there the address. This portal will be extended as soon as Horizon Europe is in place, also for Digital Europe as well. Okay. In my presentation, I didn't address much of the Kdt Joint Undertaking. I think, let me just dedicate my last word to that, is I think it has been extremely important and instrumental, the achievements that we have together in ECSEL in order to be able to defend the case for a more ambitious, a larger, more integrated program, the Kdt Joint Undertaking. Now we're in the legal process of having Kdt approved by the Council, initially by the Commission adoption, and then by the Council approval. We are trying to do our best, really our best, to make sure that this cycle of approval is short to be concluded within next year, to ensure that there's no gap between the finalization of ECSEL and the launching of the Kdt-Ju, so we can continue supporting the electronic component system community that we have been doing in the last 7 years. And with that, I conclude my talk. Many thanks for your attention.
Thank you so much, Paco, for your kind presentation and outlining to us all the opportunities that exist at the moment, but especially as of the 1st of January 2021, when hopefully Horizon Europe will run, because there's this tiny glitch, I would say, that the budget still needs to be approved, but I know everyone is working very hard on getting this approval. And as you have seen, ladies and gentlemen, there are ample of opportunities within the clusters, but also I think the European Innovation Council could offer some opportunities to really support breakthrough innovations, which for sure is something that needs particular focus also for the ECS community. So thanks for that. And the next speaker I would like to introduce to you is Yves Gigase, who is the head of programs at the ECSEL Joint Undertaking, before which he held the same post for the AENEAS Joint Undertaking. And before that, he had been working for 3 years at the European Commission as program officer in the radioactive waste management programs for Russia and Central Asia. And before that, even as a manager and several research positions in several companies active in the field of optoelectronics, electronic consumer goods, consulting and telecommunications. So I would say a very broad background. Yves, we're very happy to have you, and I'd like to give the floor to you.
Thank you. Do you hear me and you see my slides?
Loud and clear, and we can see your slides.
Excellent. Listen, well, I'm here to present ECSEL and the Kdt Joint Undertaking. As you heard from Paco, actually, I cannot tell a lot about the Kdt Joint Undertaking. I will tell more about the ECSEL Joint Undertaking because this is the last Efecs for the ECSEL Joint Undertaking. And I'll take the time to very briefly, look back over the nearly 7 years that we have been running. I had to make a bit of an assumption here for the call 2020, because as you know, the call 2020 is still under discussion and still hasn't been decided. So I kind of extrapolated here. But here you see some final figures that probably will be improved in the coming month about the number of projects, the number of beneficiaries, the number of entities. So 1,500 different organizations have been participating to 96 projects. And that represents 34,000 person years. It's a huge amount, I think. On the right-hand side, you also see, by the way, the figures for the ENEAC and ARTEMIS joint undertakings. And you see that we've been really increasing dramatically the total cost of all the projects that we've been running, and also the funding that has been given to all these projects. So yes, we did, with ECSEL quite a lot of good work. And maybe one of the things that I like to show here, are we European enough? Well, definitely. We're certainly not like EUREKA spread all over the world, although we do have participants from, the United States, from Brazil, also from Taiwan. But if you look at the Europe and the region around, we have participants from all the member states, nearly all the member states, and also from ECSEL participating states like Israel, Turkey, Switzerland, and Norway. You see that the coordinators are also, from those countries, obviously. Now, one thing I'd like to show you is this. If you compare that, per size of the population, you see that actually it is pretty even, though clearly two countries stand out, and that is Austria and Finland, who have much more beneficiaries per size of the population than the other countries. And that is a nice result, I think, and we will certainly look further into that and how we can improve also all the other countries. Now, as an organization, obviously, we've also been growing. We have more participants, as I said, so more members of the industry organizations that are supporting ECSEL. We have a larger PAB, Public Authority Board, because more countries decided to join as ECSEL participating states. We've been doing a whole bunch of events, and I'm not going to talk here about all the results of all the projects that has been, set sufficiently. And please visit, the exhibitions and all the posters of all the projects that are there. Like each year, I think this is an eye-opener, also with the demonstrators. It's an eye-opener. ECSEL has been producing so much in terms of new results. But obviously, that's not enough, and we can look a bit also, and here I'm briefly going to show you two elements. On the one hand, patents and publication. Where do we stand, patents and publication, in comparison, for example, to other programs? You see that I calculated here the number of patents per 10 million euro, the patents per 100 participants, the same for the publications. And you see that we're not doing too bad. Actually, we're pretty good in terms of patents compared to the other programs. We are also pretty good, though maybe not excellent in terms of the publications. And I believe that this is one of the strengths of ECSEL. Not only do we deliver results, we also measure well on what I would say the traditional KPIs of the program. One thing I should mention here, that is that right now, these figures are still a bit of a rag bag of all kinds of results, because you have here a mix of projects that started, projects that are nearly finished. So, the number of patents, the number of publications are very different from one place to the other. And that is something to remember. There is a huge spread. Some patents in some projects in ECSEL do not produce any patents or very little publications, while others do much better than. Averages are a bit treacherous there. Another interesting things are the reuse of the results. In Horizon 2020, every project has, or every proposal has to declare which results it is being reusing from other projects. Okay, and if you now just count, if you just count the number of projects that are being mentioned, you get an idea about how many results that are being used. Now, obviously, sometimes you use many results from one project, so projects are not necessarily the number of results, but here you see that per I would say provenance. You can use results from previous projects, from projects from other programs, etc. Now let's have there's a lot to learn from this graph, and again, one has to be a bit cautious with the assumptions and also the conclusions. But one thing that you see is, for example, that here you have in green the ENIAC and ARTEMIS results, or projects that are being mentioned by the selected projects in the different calls of ECSEL, and you see that this goes down. You can calculate the kind of half-life of the project results, which is around 3 to 4 years. you can also see that, the call 2014, the results will really be used in and around the call 2017 and call 2018, for example. Okay, here in the call 2015, projects have been mentioning what they were going to do, what they were going to reuse from a call 2014, but it's really after 2-3 years that project results are uptaken in new projects and being really used. But the most important topic, the most important point to learn from this graph are these light blue bars. And focus on here, where I've been taking everything together, the different calls up to 2018. What you see is that actually this blue bar is from everything else outside of the European Union sphere, outside of the European programs, if you want. So these are projects that are coming from, for example, EUREKA, from national projects, from contract research, etc., etc. There are also a number of projects that are mentioned without being very clear under which program they've been running, and you see that that is around 50%. So the ECSEL projects are using around 50% of results and project results from I would say projects outside of this sphere, and 50% of inside of the sphere. So we have to pay a lot of attention, I believe, also to whatever is being produced outside and facilitate that. And we heard this morning the EUREKA director telling us that also. So what will bring Kdt Joint Undertaking? Definitely a whole bunch of new challenges, and as one usually says, also new opportunities. For one, it's a new program, and it's supposed to simplify, and there will be a lot of simplifications for sure. But there will also be new focus areas. There will definitely be much more attention to impact and results, etc. We will try to measure that much better and to steer the program in function of that. The call conditions will be different. The selection of the topics, for example, maybe the size of the project, etc. Everything is open for discussion, but there will be changes there. We heard this morning that, for example, there will be a focus on edge of the edge, on edge computing and artificial intelligence processes. We also heard it from Paco. SMEs are still, something that we'd like to see more in our program. Education has been mentioned this morning also as being very important, and maybe we should think about how to handle that better. Next to that, there will be new funding schemes and new payment modalities. For example, we might be organize the payment of the participants in different ways, not from two different streams, but everything from the same stream or whatever. There are thoughts, but this is still very much under discussion. We also not sure we have heard that today, but there is a new SRA, Strategic Research Agenda 2021, with a bunch of new topics, and so a bunch of new things to do. And obviously, one has to focus on certain elements, but the SRA is in the end still the main building block to start projects on. Finally, there needs to be a general attention on the Green Deal, on digitalization. There is in this Efecs tomorrow a big discussion on the Green Deal tomorrow at 9. We've heard also this morning about the KDT for Green, for example, from Michael Weissmuller. And then finally, cooperation between the programs, something that Paco hinted at. Very important. We have our lighthouses. We have been, building on the lighthouses to create this type of cooperation between programs. There is a discussion. There are a couple of workshops tomorrow at 11:30 on that. We also heard about from our EUREKA colleagues about partnerships beyond European horizons. And as I indicated in my previous slide, this is probably also important. We not only need to make sure that there is a better cooperation between the programs of our cluster, for example, but we also need to create the opportunities to cooperate better with the programs outside. And I'm not only talking here about EUREKA, I'm also talking about the bilateral projects, the government-led projects, for example. And why not also look at contract research and other types of result generation? Now, the question that some of you might have is, what about the calls in 2021? And as Iris mentioned in the beginning, there is absolutely no decision on that yet. We at the office, together with the Public Authority Board and the Governing Board, we're looking at various possible scenarios. We're preparing for everything that is possible and imaginable, so that the moment that we get a go, we can start. But you will have to, look for that on our website and see when we will be able to launch calls for KDT. And with that, I would like to thank you all for this marvelous event that Efecs has been for the last years.
Thank you so much, Yves, and thanks a lot for your contribution as well. Setting out that indeed the joint undertaking ECSEL delivers on its results, and what I really liked that what you pointed out, you have a focus on patents, which is important, but also this part on the reuse of the results, that actually you share these results and the data also generated are then already implemented in other projects within EUREKA on the national level, within contract research. So there's a lot of cross-links. And ladies and gentlemen, I think what's also nice in a way to know is that no decision yet has been taken on the KDT and the first calls for 2021. And Yves, you already referred to the strategic research and innovation agenda that we will discuss tomorrow as well. And I'm sure there's still ample of opportunity to give some input there. So ladies and gentlemen, before moving on to the next speaker, I'd like to point out two things to you. People were asking if the slides will be shared. Yes, they will be shared after the event. And also, I'd like to ask you, if you have any questions, please send them in the chat and we can take them on board after the final speaker has spoken. It is my great pleasure now to announce to you Peter Connock, who is the Penta director, and he has been working in the semiconductor industry for over 40 years with a wide range of responsibilities in development, customer service, marketing and management. And in his current role, he is responsible for the management of the EUREKA cluster Penta, which is a public-private partnership focused on catalyzing research, development and innovation in the micro and nano-electronics enabled systems and application sector in Europe. And we're really looking forward to this novelty, I would say, Peter, because now you are going to launch this call for us. So I'm going to give the floor to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I can be heard and seen.
Yes, copy that.
Good. So I'm delighted to be here as the Penta director and on behalf of Rémi Renaudin, who's responsible for Euripides, to present the 2021 Euripides and Penta joint call. The first thing to note, and the only thing to note from this slide, is the important dates on the bottom right: the project outline submission on the 26th of February and the full project proposal on the 28th of May. What are we trying to do with this joint call? Essentially, our job is to stimulate projects in the ECS, Electronic Components and Systems community. And as with other programs, we want to support the rapid development of the global digital economy, vital to all of us. Most importantly, we are open, and we want to be very open to all elements of that community. It's not reserved for anybody. If you're a large enterprise, if you're an SME, if you're a research and technology organization or an academic institution such as a university, this program is open to you. And with that, we try and do our absolute best to make it as flexible and easy to use as possible as a funding instrument, fully aligned to both industrial and funding country priorities as it has to be. And essentially, what are we trying to do is create impact. We want economic development, and we want our programs to help solve societal challenges through, of course, the medium of collaborative innovation. And so, we're here for all of you. We're here to enable the digital economy, and we're here to help you create international collaborative partnerships along the electronic components and systems value chain, with the intent of creating innovation and resulting impact and growth. We exist, as you've heard, in a landscape. The landscape is changing. But as you also heard, there is some also consistency to it as we move forward. In essence, there's a range on the left from national funding to on the right, the big strategic projects from what was Horizon 2020 and is developing into Horizon Europe. Whatever happens as this develops over time, EUREKA in general and the clusters in particular will form a unique but fully complementary component in this funding landscape. We are funded nationally and therefore we follow national direction, but nevertheless we are creating collaborative partnerships either through individual cluster programs, joint cluster programs such as we're running between Penta and Euripides. And a recent innovation is the introduction of cooperations with all or some of the other clusters in so-called intercluster challenge calls. A recent example of that has been on AI and was very successful. I think you're probably all familiar with clusters, but they are public-private partnerships. And in essence, Euripides and Penta have chosen to work together because we operate together in the electronic components and systems landscape, and we are complementary. Penta focuses on RD&I in micro and nanoelectronic enabled systems and applications, while Euripides on packaging and integration of micro devices and smart electronic systems. So you can see that by working together, we can, we believe, better stimulate innovation and impact in our community and create this societal and economic impact that we need. As Yves mentioned, the strategic research agenda is changing in 2021, and this call will follow the new strategic research and innovation agenda, a new word in the title. As before, it's created by an awful lot of experts in the field, sponsored by the three industrial associations, AENEAS, ARTEMIS-IA and EPoSS. And it has resulted in three main areas: foundational technology, cross-sectional technology, and application areas. And as an agenda, it will, as Yves mentioned, will drive Kdt, is an input to other European programs, and of course drives our call, the Joint Euripides Penta call. I'm not going to go into it in any detail. It's complex, but it's a very, very healthy and hope reference document for you. Looking at the three areas, you can see foundational technology, you can see cross-sectional technologies and how they work together to create opportunities in the application areas above. The application areas are similar in name to the previous research agenda, strategic research agenda, but with the addition of agri-food and natural resources. I think we can all agree that's a pretty important element in our lives going forward. What is a typical Euripides Penta project? Well, it's what we call mid-size, 4 to 30 participants, with a minimum of 2, but sometimes up to 4 EUREKA member countries. Obviously, for Euripides and Penta, it operates in the ECS value chain, and the project sizes are between roughly 2 as a minimum, up to about 30 million, though we have had larger project sizes. Duration of a typical project is 3 years, doesn't have to be. Remember, we are in EUREKA, and EUREKA can be flexible to many different requirements, both industrial and public authority. You need to be aware that there is a new focus on sustainability. I think we can agree that that's pretty important for 2021 and beyond. And in the application, the project outline, you'll be asked to show how your submission is going to contribute towards the sustainability requirements of our planet. There are so many project areas, it's really too complex to go into, but we're pretty certain that if you're in the electronic components and systems chain, working with the technology that you're developing and looking at enabling applications, then you'll find a home in our environment. We work with a lot of countries. EUREKA, as you know, comprises some 44 or 45 countries. The ones that you see here are ones that we've had active engagements with, but all EUREKA countries could be open to your participation, but you need to go and talk to your national funding bodies. You need to go and talk to the public authorities and make sure that they're willing to support your application. EUREKA also allows participation from countries outside its network, as long as 2 EUREKA countries are already involved in the proposal. A very quick snapshot of Penta. Well, I have to say, we're not quite as big as ECSEL, with the ability to have stimulated over the last 4 years some 300 million of project costs. But we've had 19 funding countries involved, 41 active projects, and pretty high SME and research participation. Please note that those percentages there are funding. So the hardest, if you like, measure, the hardest KPI. If you want to measure by participation, 35%, 40% are numbers that we routinely see of these types of organizations in our programs. We really want every application that comes in to be as successful as possible. And you have to remember that you have 2 audiences when you make an application. You have our technical experts who are really going to look at that project and say, is this a viable project? Is it really pushing the state of the art? Does the consortium work together well? And though it's risky, are we going to have a chance of a really good output? So they're going to look at the overall project and critique it, give feedback on that, and try and help you make it as good as possible in the full project proposal stage. At the same time, of course, the national authorities will be looking at your project, but they will have more of a national focus. Of course, they'll look at the overall project, but they will also look at the return on investment in their individual countries. And so as you submit a proposal, make sure you think of those 2 complementary but different audiences. Then in terms of the details, I'm not going to go through a lot, but please make sure that your problem statement is clear. We need to know what you want to do. Please make sure that you show that you're pushing the state of the art. You're changing from where we are now and creating something new and unique. We need to make sure that all your partners have value in your ecosystem, in the consortium that you're creating, that they complement each other as you achieve your ambitious goals. And absolutely, we want to see the potential of impact. Who's going to commercialize the solution? But it's not just commercial. I already mentioned societal impact, but there's other impact as well. Think of a university that can teach a new course thanks to your work and educate the next generation of engineers. I've already mentioned the need to meet national criteria. Please go and talk to your national funding body now, right at the beginning of your application, and get their help and get their guidance, and then show how that they will benefit from the work that you do. Sustainability I've referred to, it's of course important, and we believe that every project that we sponsor should move us forward in that direction. And of course, be ambitious. These programs are designed to address risks. They're not designed to be engineering programs. They're designed to do something that hasn't been done before. So we want you to be ambitious, but we also need to make sure that the risks are understood. So how to develop your proposal? You're here at Efecs, which is great. 900 odd people are here at Efecs, which is even greater. Well, when I say here, up in a cloud somewhere together, which is not the same as quite being here together, but at least we'll make the best of it in this environment. Go and visit the posters, attend the sessions on project ideas, visit booths to get ideas, and of course, come and talk to us at EUREKA and at Penta to get further information on the programs. Go and talk to your national public authorities. I repeat it again, it's so important, because only in that way will you have a good chance of funding by the end of the process. And there's a tool called the ECS collaboration tool. If you submitted a poster or a pitch, you used it as part of this program. It is a networking tool to help you form consortia, build up projects, meet partners, look for projects, leave messages, use it. It's free, it's online, and meet as many people as you can in that environment. Finally, there will be, as there was last year, an ECS brokerage event in January of next year. There will again be posters. There will again be information on funding. We hope to have some briefing sessions, for example, on how to submit a good project. And of course, there will be an opportunity for pitches. So do take advantage of that if you want us to round out your consortium and make sure you're ready for the project submission. So with that, a reminder that that project submission date is the 26th of February. We really look forward to welcoming your projects into this call. We believe we can give you a pretty special service in terms of the type of project that we encourage, and we very much look forward to working with you in getting those projects in. Thank you very much indeed.
Peter, also for your presentation, and also for setting out so clearly how to submit a successful application and how to further develop your proposal. And I think everyone who's interested, and I'm sure everyone is interested, have noted those dates in the agenda. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have about 10 minutes left for a short Q&A, and some questions already came into the chat, also related to the budget, but I've heard that Paco has been very active already, typing and answering those questions. His colleagues have helped out as well. Another question that came in is also related to deadlines, dates, perhaps for Yves and for Paco. Do you already have an idea when the KDT, well, the first KDT call will be published in 2021? Will that be at the beginning, middle, at the end?
Hi, thanks, Charlotte, and thanks for I've seen a number of questions on the chat. That is an important one. I kind of touched on that on my presentation. We have a meeting last week with the legal service because the Commission is now in the process to have the adoption of the new joint undertakings. This is a process that we are confident will happen still within the German presidency this year. But then, as you know, the next step in the process is the approval of the Council. That means the member states should get together and agree on the proposed joint undertakings on all aspects, in terms of the operation, in terms of the objectives, in terms of the financing. This is a process which is not certainly in our control. I'm talking from the Commission point of view, but based on experience from past similar situations, we were confident that this process can happen in the first half of the year. So in a way that we could have a legal basis, a council regulation in place before summer break. That will allow us, with maybe certain kind of expedited processes, to make a call for proposals and launch project next year. Now, at the meeting I'm referring last week, in the planning, we have that the council regulation might be ready after summer break. And this puts a concern on us and all JUs, because then the time pressure is going to be significant. So we are working together and trying to see to which extent we can have this decision approved by the council before summer break, because that will allow us to launch calls and to have launch in a I would say in a way which is kind of sound and stable. Okay.
Exactly.
So I just sharing with you very openly what is the situation. But again, we are working in making sure, as I mentioned in my presentation, that there's no gap between ECSEL and KDT, and by extension by the rest of the journal.
I think that is very reassuring indeed for the audience, that there won't be a gap, because what we discussed also this morning is that this sense of speed is very important, and that we need to keep up our investments. So thanks for that, and we cross our fingers. I would say that at least before the summer break, there will be the first call launched for KDT. So thanks for that. Perhaps a question also to Peter. I think you used a very nice slide giving a kind of an overview of where you position Penta, Euripides, as compared to also ECSEL and the EU level, the European Commission Horizon Europe funding programs. My question to you is, if I would be a newcomer to the EU calls, the EU funding programs, where should I start? When to apply to Horizon, when to apply to ECSEL, when to apply to EUREKA? Or would you say, well, people make up some time, free up some time and apply to all those calls that you would be interested in?
Applying to all could be quite hard work.
Exactly.
I think many people go through a fairly natural journey if we consider small companies, because these are the people we're trying to bring into these programs, grow, help to expand, hopefully get a few unicorns out of them, and so on and so forth. There's a sort of natural progression where first they're working with their national funding authorities and hopefully receiving national funding. Then once they want to develop beyond that, international collaboration becomes an important component in your development. Gaining more knowledge, access to other complementary technologies, and of course markets as well. Eurostars in EUREKA, which bring perhaps two small organizations together in a short, fairly low-cost program to develop a new technology. And you learn from that. And the Commission has similar programs in that area. Now, then things change a little bit at the next step when you want to form a partnership with a larger group of people. In many cases, your first step, again as a small organization, will be to join a consortia that's led by a larger company. And larger companies lead consortia in the current ECSEL environment, of course in KDT, and they do in the EUREKA environment as well. So then I think you need to do a little bit of research. Look at EUREKA, look at the Commission programs. The Commission programs, or at least the ECSEL programs, tend to be, but again, that can give you access to a broader group of participants, which may help you. In the EUREKA area, they tend to be a little bit smaller, as I mentioned in my presentation. And that may suit you in your first stages of development, perhaps before entering a big strategic Commission program. So be guided by your national funding authority, do a little bit of research, and then you find in the offices, the EUREKA offices, certainly like Euripides and Penta, the ECSEL offices like with Yves, you find help. You find guidance, and you can perhaps learn from that before you make your decision. There are also call cycles which may suit what you want to do. So there are a lot of factors, but don't apply for everything.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a nightmare.
So if you're a newcomer, you would really suggest to first perhaps start more on the national level, start playing your step up to the Champions League and the World Cup.
But go international, because you know the European Union is a sort of international environment. But
Exactly.
Go international, develop your contacts, because that is the way you're going to expand.
And then a final question, I think, to Yves, because time is already almost up. Well, I'm happy to know from you. I mean, many of the ECSEL calls right now, they have a project outline deadline, and then the full proposal deadline. Will you work with the same kind of deadlines for KDT?
Yeah, probably will. In that the project outline is in fact a first step also for the national authorities that support us, seeing what kind of projects that are coming on, also preparing a budget for those, etc., etc. So I think it's important to have this, but we might, for example, reduce the size of the project outline. We might do all kinds of things along this road, of course. So yeah, I believe that still will be
the case.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that still will be the case. And a question related to that is that, Yves, you quickly mentioned also that call conditions for KDT might be different. What are you thinking of when you compare it to ECSEL?
Well, at this moment, for example, funding rate, the way that we do payments, maybe even some of the evaluation criteria or the precisions that we make, everything, thresholds, you name it, basically. Yeah.
Okay, very clear. And then final question to Paco. When we talk about also the proposals under Horizon Europe, are you also applying two-stage proposals, or does it really depend on the call itself?
Okay. When we are talking about Horizon Europe, the ways, sorry, there's some noise. The way the plan has been put together is by, as I mentioned, part of it being implemented through partnerships, parallel, it will be implemented in open work program calls. So this is kind of two parallel tracks that we are following. The one you're more interested in the KDT, and on the work program, we have a number of topics which are under discussion. It's my presentation that you're going to get, and we will see that the topics which are there are topics which is absolutely relevant to the electronic and compliance system community. So have a look in there. If still any question, you have my email address there, so don't hesitate to contact. But again, we're in the process. We are still at the draft level, and we're in the process of discussing with member state and industry the full scope and the full topics priorities. Okay.
Exactly.
So can I have just 1 minute? I don't know, still, Charlotte. We didn't talk about cake much in the presentation.
We can try, Paco, because the next session will really start at 3 o'clock sharply. But if you could make that contribution in the chat, perhaps as an alternative, that would be wonderful, because I'm sure the audience would like to take that on board as well. So Peter, Yves, Paco, thanks so much for your contribution and outlining the plans. And I do hope for you that a lot of people in the audience today and tomorrow will apply, and that you will have lots of work to do within your offices together with your staff. So thanks once again. Ladies and gentlemen, that was it for the first part of Efecs today. And now there is an opportunity for you to listen to a couple of intro pitches. And this is part of a so-called pre-brokerage session, because the real brokerage session will also take place in January, but more will come to that tomorrow for sure. So I think the project video will now be run. Thanks once again, and we see each other tomorrow.